This is going to be my spoiler review of Logan. If you have not seen the movie, do not watch this review. Am I going to do a non-spoiler? Hell no. I want to talk about this movie because it's so damn epic. Right away, let's get right into the action, right into the grit, the meat, the bones of this thing. It's epic. This movie is so well made, so well put together. It's just authentic. It feels real. The world feels lived in. If you have not seen any other X-Men movie, you do not need to see them to watch Logan, but it definitely helps, it definitely benefits to having this pre-existing knowledge of these characters. So, it's authentic, it's real, you feel so connected to the world, to everything that's happening, and it just feels gritty, it feels dark, it feels like a Western. And that's a really good feel to have for the final installment of Logan. And I was really excited going into that, knowing that notion that we're going to see something gritty, something dark. And right away, I fucking loved this movie. It's beautiful, it's well made, and all the characters feel so real. Everything about it is so good. Hugh Jackman, who we've seen in this role since 2000. For 17 years, Hugh Jackman has played Wolverine, longer than any other comic book hero has been portrayed on screen, and it's been the same actor for that whole time. And if this is the character's final send-off, then I can honestly say this is the most well-deserved send-off I've seen in any movie. And the payoff at the end of everything happening in his character, it's so beautiful, it's so emotional. Touch on some of the scenes that I really loved. Seeing Logan is him as this gritty old man who is on the verge of collapsing. We've seen him struggle with these kind of things before, being, this tougher, upbeat guy who's not really happy, who's always angry. But in this world, you can see that everything he's ever done, the entire existence he has, it's affected him to his core. He is broken, he is dying, he cannot go on any longer, but he keeps going on because of Charles Xavier and their chemistry. These two have worked together for so long with these characters. The way they act, the way they talk to each other, it's like old friends talking, it's like father and son arguing. It's so real. It's just raw emotion at its most pure, and you just can't help but love everything these characters do on screen. Charles Xavier, Patrick Stewart, my goodness, give this man an Oscar. His portrayal is so riveting, it's so breathtaking to see him go as this strong character we've seen in the past to a broken down man on the verge of losing his mind, unable to control his own power. He's having seizures that affect everyone around him. And you just can't help but feel for this man. He loses his mind sometimes, he can't think clearly. All the way up until his end, his untimely death in this movie. You want to help him, you feel for him. He's trying so hard to show Logan how to be human again. It's so riveting, and Patrick Stewart just crushes the role. I cannot just say how good he did here. He just was so human. He was so human, he was so real. You know people like this, broken down, on the verge of collapsing, but are fighting to show their son, anybody in their lives, this one last piece for them to hold on to. Everything with Charles was so good in this movie, and every scene where he had the seizure, and the way the camera moved, and you see all the characters struggling, fighting with having the most powerful mutant alive, not being able to control himself, breaking down. It's just so intriguing. And just slowly, you start to realize Charles is not going to make it out of this movie. It's tough to say that because the character does die in the most brutal scene in the entire movie, where he confesses what happened to him before. And it makes you think, did Charles kill the X-Men when he started to lose his mind? It's tough, it's emotional, it's impactful. You just want to feel for him, but it's so hard. And throughout the entire movie, Hugh Jackman just carries the weight of the world on his shoulders. He starts off an arrogant, gruff man who just can't control himself. He goes berserk at the beginning of the movie. This is where we first get that R rating. We see him lose his mind, lose control, And you see that's the struggle he's going through daily in this movie. It's just so powerful to see these characters we've seen for almost 2 decades at their end. They're on the verge of just losing it. And this movie is the proper send-off for both of these characters. And these new characters that we meet, Stephen Merchant as Caliban, I love this character. He served his purpose so well, being one of the last mutants who's able to track the other mutants alive, being the albino, being this guy who's just helping Wolverine, Logan, figure out what to do with Xavier. And when you see him, because he's albino and he goes on the sun, his skin is burning. It's so real. It's so powerful. I can't believe Stephen Merchant played a character like this. I can't believe I cared about Caliban so much. And when he sacrifices himself to save the other people, it's just so real. The character did not have a big role, but he was impactful. His part of the story drove it forward, and he was so good. The actor that plays Pierce, the main bad guy with his arm missing, I can't remember his name. He was on Narcos. He's been on a lot of stuff. He's going to be in Predator next year. He was so good as this character who you believe is this government man trying to do something good. He just has his motive, and he wants to do good and just get rid of the mutants. Is that good? No, it's not. And I think you see him really just be about himself. He's not a good guy, but what he sees himself is as a good guy. And that's something that makes a really good villain, is when they know that their point is good because that's how they see it. It's something we've seen in Magneto and Loki, and it makes them these really gripping villains. And the character who stole the movie, stole everything in this, X-23, Laura. This is how you send off Logan, with the dynamic of him in X-23. Something that is one of the greatest comic book characters ever to be brought into existence, X-23. Because of how you can see this character existing, it makes so much sense. How she's kind of this clone of Logan, brought up, and throughout the whole movie, people are saying that she's his daughter. And it's so real, it's so just authentic and so pure that he knows he's not, but he has to look after her like she is. And the way she acts, she is just a little girl murderer. She is so dangerous and cunning and evil, but she's so pure and innocent. It's just the perfect way to have this kind of character made. She could have gone easily just being a stereotyped little girl who's just nice and doesn't want to fight, but they made her real, and they made her like Wolverine is at the beginning when we first see him in X-Men, and he's berserk, he's an animal, he's feral. And that's how they made Laura, and I'm really glad that we saw that angle. It was just so pure of the character. This movie just hits you so hard of all these things. The emotion, the weight of everything, the way that the relationship between Logan and Charles, the father-son dynamic, and the relationship between Logan and Laura, the father and daughter, just the lone cub and wolf, these two people who need each other more than anything and look out for each other. The scene when they go to this family's house and they're all having dinner is one of the most beautiful scenes of the movie, because it's the first time you see all these characters actually happy. And they're together, and it's just so beautiful. The way these characters work together, their relationships, it's a family. And that's what the X-Men has always been about. They've been about family, they've been about acceptance and doing things for each other. And now we don't have the X-Men, and seeing these characters who... Wolverine himself is this gruff man who does not want to be accepted, he doesn't want to be loved, he just wants to be himself. It's so beautiful, it's so real, it's so emotional. So one of the things that I think could be a little controversial for the movie is this X-24. It's kind of this is a clone of Wolverine. It's Hugh Jackman looking feral, disgusting, this like younger looking guy. And it could have gone bad. The reason I liked the idea of X-24 is because it's Logan fighting his inner demons. Metaphorically and literally. He's seeing the part of himself he doesn't like, the part of himself he regrets being and doing. The feral monster who kills and hunts. He doesn't like that, and I took it as the metaphorical way of him fighting his inner problems and being able to accept his death, accept his own fate. Throughout the movie, you see Logan, he is broken, he has lost so much, he cannot heal like he used to. And we have this beautiful scene where he's popping his claws for the first time, but one can't come out all the way. He's broken, he's old, he's on the verge of collapsing. That's something that we haven't seen in a comic book movie. Sure, we've seen characters who are old and they're gruff and they can't do that anymore. But no one we followed for so long being just so ready to die. And I love the juxtaposition, the whole idea that Logan is carrying an adamantium bullet so he can off himself if things get too hard, if things are too much for him and he can't just do it anymore. It's beautiful. It's just beautiful. This movie just makes you feel so much emotions for everything that happens with the characters, everything that happens in the story. The whole story of these special kids that have the powers of the X-Men. You see the powers of Storm and Iceman and Magneto and Jean Grey all in this movie. And you see these kids who were pretty much mutated to be these next fighters. It's so heartbreaking. And the scene where they're all running away and you feel like these soldiers are going to kill these kids until Wolverine comes up and he's killing people. The violence is beautiful. The gore is beautiful. This movie does not hit you over the head with its gruesome violence, with its R rating, and that's what I really like about it. It's just so real, and it's I keep saying it's so real because it feels real. It feels so natural. That's what would happen. The blood, the gore, the violence, all of it just feels so natural. And I love the whole angle of Eden, and they need to get to this sanctuary, pretty much where the mutants can live freely. And the whole thing with the X-Men comic books being this thing that exists in the X-Men universe, it's brilliant because we've seen that a bit in the Avengers, we've seen that a bit in some of that stuff. But with the X-Men, you gotta think, not many people consider them heroes for a long time. So some person, some artist, some writer took their stories and made it look real up until the end when they get to Eden. And it's so heartbreaking. It's just, you want to know what happened to the X-Men. And if I could change one thing about this movie, I wouldn't change a lot. I would put in another X-Men. And I know that might be stretching, that might be a little too far for some people. Maybe if we didn't have X-24, the weird clone of Wolverine, and we had Sabretooth, I'd be okay with that too. But if we had another X-Men, somebody else who's really old, really grizzled, maybe even Storm, and we have Halle Berry be this old character, Colossus even, hell, even Magneto, who could be dying too. If we have another character, it just shows how much more of an impact the X-Men had on the world. And I'm okay that we had Caliban and we didn't have anybody else. But if we had somebody else, I think it would be more impactful, it would be bigger, it would be more just grand. So we got to talk about something that's really heartbreaking, and that is the death of Logan. And I'm not going to lie, that part in the movie, that whole scene at the end where he's fighting X-24, and you see the kids are tying up Pierce, and you see all this, you know something bad is about to happen. We've seen Logan struggle from the beginning of this movie, the way he's accepted his fate with Laura, the way he's accepted his fate with Charles. You know right away, this is not going to go well for Logan. And I'm really glad with how it turned out, because the send-off could have been bad. The whole angle could have been so overplayed, so bad, not used right. It could have just gone south, and people were like, that's not good. You know, nobody wants to see this character die. But the send-off was just it was so beautiful. And it made so much sense. He couldn't fight anymore. He was done fighting. And it's just so intense and beautiful. And one of the other things about the character of Logan, I don't know if anybody else thought this either watching the movie, but he needs glasses in order to read things now, to see things clearly now, and I really like that angle. It's something we've seen before. I don't know if anybody else here has seen Star Trek: The Wrath of Khan. I really got the vibe there too, that Kirk, a character we followed so long in the original series, we've seen a lot. He's an old man now, he's having trouble seeing in these things, and he wears these glasses in order to read. I really got the angle of that here with Logan too, that he's this old man, he needs help doing certain things, and it was beautiful. everything about this was so beautiful. It was so real. It was surreal. It was just gorgeous. And I'm glad they sent off the character of Wolverine in such a beautiful way, an emotional way, an impactful way. And if we get to see more of X-23, of Laura, I'm okay with that. I would be okay with that. If we never saw the character again, I'm super okay with that too, because her relationship here with Logan was just probably the driving force of the movie for me. I just love seeing those two interact, the way that they talked, and the whole, he now has another reason to fight. He didn't want to help Charles. He just wanted to, he was a depressed person. And now with how he found Laura and how he finally accepted her at the end, it was beautiful. And how she calls him dad, it was heartbreaking. It was beautiful. They give him a burial. The kids are saved. It's just very well made. And just beautiful. So before I leave and leave you on that really depressing note, before this movie, there was a teaser for Deadpool 2. And this is where I'm going to sound like kind of a prude. I wish they didn't show it. Because the movie we see after this is so depressing. It's so emotional. It's so hard. It's so rough. I wish maybe an end credit. Maybe we didn't even see this at all. It just felt out of place to me to see this teaser for Deadpool 2. And I'm not saying it was a bad teaser. I like the whole thing with the Superman angle, running out of the phone booth, and seeing Nathan Summers coming soon. I thought that was really well done. It just felt out of place to me. That's just me, maybe not to you. So that's my spoilers review of Logan. I recommend checking out this movie. It's so good. Go watch it. It's just going to get to you. And good luck out there, guys.